Hey everyone, welcome back. Our next guest is the Executive Director of the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute, an arts, culture, education, and media organization that advances cultural equity, racial, and social justice for African descendant communities. And this Saturday, they'll be hosting their fourth annual AfriBembe Festival, which highlights shared heritage through powerful musical performances that are rooted in ancestral African rhythms and traditions that represent the rich diversity of the diaspora culture of Brazil, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Puerto Rico, and of course the motherland. And joining us to share more is the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora's Executive Director, Melody Capote. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Rhina. Thank you for having me and us on your program today.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure. I can't wait until we're able to do it again in studio. But I will say it's a wonderful thing to see these wonderful festivals happening outdoors. And of course, the Caribbean Cultural Center leading the way with making sure that everything African diasporic is honored and shared amongst the community. So let's talk first about AfriBembe and its evolution.
Bueno, the festival starts as a result of the closing of the Loíza Festival that had been held in El Barrio for about 50 years. And the center came in about 10 years before its closing, and we helped to revive it and give it new life. And the family decided that they were going to discontinue it after its 50th year. And we decided as an organization that's now based in El Barrio that we should do something that celebrates Black joy, something that celebrates community building and creating unity within the African diaspora. And we decided that AfriBembe was it. So in total, after 50 years of the Loíza Festival, we now present AfriBembe in its fourth iteration, and it's bringing people back in person, because for the first 2 years it was digital.
Okay, so, right, I know, that's what I mean. It's like, great. So that we're all back in person, that we can all be together and share in the space, you know, being present, right? And so let's talk about the word AfriBembe as well as your theme, Sankofa.
Okay, bueno, Sankofa is the notion of looking back to move forward. It's usually represented by a bird when you see the image of looking back to move forward. And that has consistently been the theme of the center throughout its founding, right? It was founded by Marta Moreno Vega back in 1976. And historically being able to say that in order for us to move forward and really acknowledge the contributions that we've made to world culture as African descendant people, we need to look back, see and understand the history in order to lay a way that leads us forward. So that's the notion of Sankofa, and it is the theme of the festival and of our work overall. AfriBembe, we created as a way of celebrating the Africanness in us, thus the prefix of Afri. And Bembe is a party, it's a jam session, it's a coming together. And so we put it together and decided that as part of this celebration, AfriBembe would be a way of our being able to celebrate not only the Puerto Rican tradition that is historically connected to El Barrio, but all of the diaspora, all of the dispersal of African people throughout the world. And so this is what AfriBembe will do, is be a gathering that will allow us to bring together cultures of African descendants from Jamaica, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, and so on.
Yeah, no, and thank you for sharing that. And I ask you these questions so that you can share with our viewers the significance behind the actual titles chosen, right? Because they sound catchy, but they actually have a purpose in just sharing with the community the pride. And so because you mentioned all of these different culturas, like can you name some of the performances that are going to be displayed on?
I sure can. Let's see if I can remember them all. We have the Legacy Women, who is it is a drumming group, all women's traditional musical group rooted in Afro-Dominican and Afro-Puerto Rican traditions. They're amazing, absolutely amazing. And again, not wanting to move too far away from the Puerto Rican culture and community that is El Barrio, we also felt it was important to have this representation. So there's Legacy Women, there's Bomba Yo, And Bombayo is led by master drummer and friend of the center, known as Dr. Drum. And what they will do is kind of ignite the ancestral rhythms of bomba, plena, and those rhythms that come from Puerto Rico that are rooted in tradition. We have a group from, I want to say Haiti, Raison Okang, that will be presenting for the first time. And it's the connection of being Haitian born in America, and how this, again, how important it is for us to kind of maintain and hold on to our rich ancestry and rich cultural contributions. And we have another artist, Sidki Konde, who is from Guinea, and will be really just a fascinating story of his own musical journey, and kind of physical challenges that he's overcome, and the strength that he's found in really grounding himself in his African traditions, being now living in the United States. Eddie Montalvo y su orquesta will be the band to close.
Woo!
So that's our salsa band. Eddie is,
and I know you love to dance salsa.
I love it. And Eddie is a really, really good friend of mine personally, but of the organization. And so they will be our closer at the festival. So again, it's kind of taking you through this journey from the traditional to the contemporary, from Africa to all of the various, well, not all, we're not covering them all in the festival, but looking at the various stops that slave ships made throughout the diaspora, wherever we are present. And we are really taking a moment to highlight Black joy, to highlight the intergenerational experience, because this is a family event. We have a children's village with activities for young people. We have an exhibition. Oh, we're highlighting Hiram Maristani, Iram Maristani, who was known as the people's photographer, who recently transitioned to spirit. And we'll have an exhibition of his work where we're highlighting those photographs that kind of highlight El Barrio, from playing in the pump to playing skelzies on the street, to being up on the roof of a building to take pictures with the beautiful New York skyline. So there are different elements and different components that have something for everybody, in addition to food vendors, vendors in general, food, crafts, books. I like to say it's an educating and entertaining experience. We edutain.
Yeah, I know. We know all about edutainment. Estamos igual. And so this is also, I just want everybody to know that it's going to be taking place on 120th Street, right? So while it's identified as being part of, it's going to be happening in Art Park, you're actually closing down the street because it sounds like a big festival.
Yeah, the park will have the exhibition and the children's activities, Harlem Art Park, and we wanted to thank Debbie Quiñones for her partnership in this. It's been an opportunity for us to activate the park and for the arts to be activated in our community. And culture being the overall umbrella and art being a part of that. And so much in these very kind of challenging times and throughout history has been taken from us in our culture, our language, our music, our sacred traditions, right? So this is a way of putting culture at the center and putting those petals back onto the flower that say, these are the pieces of who we are. And we can do it in a celebratory way that celebrates, again, just kind of celebrates Black joy, celebrates our joy.
And it's also intergenerational, right? Because you're also near Casa Be houses, which is a senior home accommodation, right? And so it's just, I want to make sure that our audience understands that it's truly like a family affair.
Yeah, it's a festival where grandparents, parents, children will all have a good time. And the thing is, can have a good time together, right? So that there's activities happening throughout the site that are intentionally designed to have families work and celebrate together. And a big part of our work has also been, everybody now is kind of on this kick of storytelling. We've always been about storytelling. We're a tradition that comes from celebrating oral traditions and the passing down of recipes and stories and maybe things we shouldn't know, right, about our families, but someone has to record it. And so through oral traditions, which is what we see today with hip hop and rap, right, we're able to tell these stories, sometimes not so pleasant.
Right.
And it's about documenting and telling our stories in a way that allows us to take notice. And so the intergenerational component of this festival is key to addressing those very things. And abuelita can explain bomba to a grandchild who's sitting next to her because she knows that story, right? And so it's really intentional by design.
That's lovely. And we're so happy that you're here sharing it with our viewers. I know it's an all-day affair, and I want to thank you once again. I will give everybody the information. That was Melody Capote, Executive Director of CCCADI, or, as we say in full force, Caribbean Cultural Center, African Diaspora Institute. And once again, the 4th annual AfriBembe Festival, which is what we were discussing, is taking place on Saturday, August 13th, and that is happening from 11:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Harlem Art Park, which is located on East 120th Street between Lexington and 3rd Avenue. And if you're interested in more information, you can visit cccadi.org. All right, stay tuned because Bobby C's Weekly Sports Roundup is coming up next.